Hello, everyone. This is Raise Your Voice as part of the Fans First Sports Network. I am your host, Brett Rutherford, joined as always by my good friend and co-host Darby Robinson. We are well into the offseason now after the Los Angeles Dodgers defeated the New York Yankees in 5 games, one less game than the Rays got to against the Dodgers back in 2020. And first
no gentleman's sweep for us.
No. First, thanks to Brett Phillips and Brandon Lau, who had a multi-home run game, something that Aaron Judge might never do in the World Series. Anyways, it's been a while. We did an episode like right after the regular season was over, when the postseason had just started, and a lot has changed. We kind of waited to see what news we would get and didn't get. There were 2 major hurricanes that impacted the west coast of Florida and other parts of the United States, but Pinellas County got hit really hard with both Hurricane Helene and Hurricane Milton, in the latter of which destroyed the roof of Tropicana Field. And there was so much like
our background.
I know. Oh my gosh.
It's a testament.
Do I need to update it with
no. Oh God. Yeah.
That's kind of how I'm feeling right now. But there's a lot like we don't know. We're not going to spend this episode like trying to guess where they're going to play, what's going to happen, who's going to pay for it, because I don't know. And at this point, like, it's the off season. I'm worried about like roster construction and stuff. I don't really want to spend too much time thinking about it. But Darby, the one thing that I have thought about since this happened is I wonder how much manpower in the Rays front office is being spent on like running when they're evaluating free agents or trade targets to go after this year, just like evaluating how those players project in like all the different possible stadiums that they could call home in 2025 and like, okay, maybe if we're going to be playing in Clearwater, these are some players that, because of the dimensions or whatever else, all the other park factors, might be able to find some value in them. Because I have to imagine like the Rays are a smart enough organization to be crunching the numbers on a dozen different parks that I guess they could be playing in 2025.
That's a good question. I mean, I'm sure they have one of the most robust R&D like staff in all of baseball. Like they put a ton of money and personnel power into like basically quantitative analysis and baseball R&D and so like there's definitely going to be somebody that's getting the task of like running some regressions on ballpark dimensions. It is something that's going to be a big factor, right? Like the Trop was a big time pitcher friendly park and run suppressive environment. Every minor league park is probably going to be a much better offensive environment, as we kind of saw with the Blue Jays in their 1 year, bouncing between 2 different minor league parks. So yeah, I mean, like, I definitely think there is going to be it's park factors are a big, that is something that's obviously important. And so I think the thing that we don't know is like, how does that quite affect, but I would not be shocked if a team like the Rays are looking at certain free agents as like, well, this actually could work really well if they end up in like the wide world of sports in Orlando or
right.
Who knows? But it is one of those things where like switching from, if the Rays sign like a reliever that's like a heavy ground ball person, I will definitely speculate wildly that they think that they're going to a minor league park where the dimensions and fly ball effects will be a lot worse. But I think overall it's hard to fully quantify, but doesn't mean they won't try.
And it feels like every year the Rays in their preseason and their spring, going into spring training, going into the start of the year, they've dealt with something that is just, for the most part, completely out of their hands. Going back to 2020, where you had and this is something that the whole league dealt with, but the COVID interrupted spring training, and then 2021 you had the lockout, and then there was another hurricane that completely damaged Charlotte Sports Park to the point where they had to use the Wide World of Sports in Tropicana Field for spring training, and that's very different in the amount of space you have to do the things that you need to do while you're getting ready for the season. And because the Rays are based, spring training is based out of Port Charlotte. A lot of times they'll use the facilities in St. Petersburg if they need to get other work done. They also have, backfields and minor league complexes. So this is another offseason that's just not going to go routinely for the Rays. And so I guess I'm just I'm sending good vibes to everybody in the baseball operations department and everyone else that is affected by. I mean, this is the whole organization, ticketing, marketing. Like you don't have a home right now, and you have no idea what the timeline is. Yeah, you don't have an office. You can't go into the building. So this is definitely going to have an impact on the Rays. That and the TV deal. We're going to get into the baseball for just a second, but as of right now, the Rays don't have a TV deal. They were dropped by Diamond Sports. The people who operate what is now FanDuel Sports Network or FanDuel Sports Sun. They switched over to Bally Sports Sun, and now it's FanDuel bought all the naming rights. And so the Rays could come to a new deal. The Major League Baseball could take over production of the Rays games like they have for teams like the Diamondbacks, where I believe you'd be able to just get games on MLB TV, or maybe there'd be another sort of local TV deal as part of that. It could be something completely different. Part of me thinks that the Rays are hard at work to go against the grain here, maybe do something that no other team has done before with their local TV deal, because that's what the Rays do. So
there's some interesting stuff with that they could look at in terms of Seattle sports. So like their regional sports network, Root Sports, has had some issues. They went to the higher subscription model. So it like jumped up from like your basic cable package to your like advanced to like the highest level of cable packages on like Xfinity and Dish and satellite and all that sort of stuff. And so you saw a lot of teams actually trying to, they basically ended their contracts. So the hockey team, the Seattle Kraken, are with the NBC5 channel that is running it. They've basically partnered with them, brought their broadcast crew over, which again, that's a question that came up, that like the Rays broadcasters, Dwayne, BA, Trisha, they are employees of the team. They are not employees of Bally Sports. They work under that broadcast, but they are not fired with Bally's dropping. They are members of the Rays franchise, they are employees, not members of that media. So you could see potentially a local sports or a local television station do something like that. The Portland Trailblazers, the basketball team, which was also on Root, is on a separate channel now. Actually, it's the weirdest thing. I never know where it is. And it's broadcast in like 4:3, not in widescreen. So hopefully that feels kind of crazy. So that could be the potential future for us, but hopefully not. But
I didn't even know you could broadcast in 4:3 anymore.
I don't know. Whatever this channel is, it's found a way. But the Kraken, the Seattle Kraken, like the broadcast looks great. Everything looks great, and it's done through the local NBC affiliate, which is obviously that's a major media market, so they have a lot of money in their own right. So in the Tampa media market, who would that be? I don't know, but that's an option. Like that is something that this isn't the kind of collapse of the regional sports networks is been kind of long time coming.
Yeah, the bubble was going to burst eventually.
And it has been kind of deflating, flying around the room. So it's not just Tampa. It is Tampa, St. Pete. It is kind of all over, like you said, with like Arizona, Seattle. The bubble is bursting. So it'll be curious to see where the Rays do. They are creative though. So we'll see.
That they are. So now that we are in the off season, it's the off season for everybody. We've started to see some moves. There's been trades, there's been free agent signings, contract extensions, options picked up. So first and foremost for the Rays, this is not shocking news in the slightest, but they picked up the $10.5 million option for Brandon Lau, one of the best hitting second basemen in all of baseball. $10.5 million for somebody that has 35 plus home run power, plays a more than capable second base, not Gold Glove level, but definitely around that average mark at second base, and can hit like that. That's a no-brainer. One of the best hitters and one of the best power hitters in franchise history. And so I don't know if anybody was doubting that it would be picked up, but I think Mark Topkin had been saying like late in the season that they were going to pick it up. and that's exactly what they did. Could a trade still happen? Sure. I don't anticipate it. We could talk a little bit about that today. I think if the Rays need to shed payroll, and I think that is a reality. They ran a team high payroll out last year. The results were not good, and then based on the issues we just covered, there might be some other financial hardships that the organization has to endure. I don't think Brandon Lau and moving his salary is something that makes much sense for the Rays right now. But Darby, what was your reaction knowing that Brandon Lau has been will return as of this point to the Rays in 2025?
Very excited. It was a no-brainer, like you said. This is a easy pickup. Like for $10.5 million on the open market, that would be kind of laughed out of the room for somebody like Lau, right? So this is an easy choice to pick up. You mentioned like there is no sacred cows when it comes to the Rays. Like there could still be a trade that lines up well. I don't believe Lau will be traded. I feel like the way the Rays have positioned themselves and what Eric Neander has said, it does feel like he is sort of part of this team for next year. And like he plays an important role, right? He's a power hitter. The Rays lacked power last year. He is a left-handed bat. The Rays lacked that impact left-handed bat. He is the most important of their offseason moves. I mean, more so than Yandy Diaz, who has a similar amount of money. I think if you were saying we need to shed about 10 million and you were saying, okay, it's Yandy or Lau, I think the Rays take Lau every time. I think that's the right choice every time.
Yeah. I mean, Yandy is another, he's older than Brandon. And listen, I'm not pitting these two against each other. I am maybe the biggest Yandy fan there is.
He's one of the all-time great Rays for sure.
Definitely is. He definitely is. But if you look at, I'm pulling it up now, his time. So Brandon Lau, during his time with the Rays since 2019, I'm not including 2018 when he came up for a little bit at the end, but his full seasons with the Rays has played 568 games. Yandy came to the Rays in 2019, has played 666 games. So Brandon Lau only about 100 less games. Yandy Diaz, is oft injured too. I think a lot of his injuries partly because of the position that he plays at first base. He can play through a little bit more. I think Brandon Lau, there's a chance we see him move. I don't know if it'll happen this year. I don't know if it'll happen at all, but I think he gets more time at first base. He got a little bit there last year. I think depending on what happens with Jonathan Aranda and the playing time that he carves out for himself, Brandon Lau, especially if Yandy Diaz is moved, could find some time at first base. That might help him mitigate some of those injury problems that he's dealt with. But again, I think if you're, like you said, choosing between the two around a similar price, you take the guy that's a couple years younger, can play a more premium position, and can hit just as well, if not better. Because we saw Yandy Diaz did kind of have a down year, still very good year, just a down year for Yandy Diaz, who was coming off of the batting title in 2023. So, I mean, let's talk a little bit about Yandy now. I think the decision of whether or not to trade Yandy is first and foremost whether or not there are suitors for him that value him as much as the Rays do, and that's an important thing. This is like if they take him into the season and then they need to trade him mid-season, the market is definitely different, and obviously depends on how the Rays are doing. But right now, the Rays, I don't think ever feel forced to making a trade in the offseason. They never feel like they have to move on from somebody. I think they think Yandy Diaz would help their team, but maybe the return could help the team both now and in the future. And a lot of that would rest on whether or not they think Jonathan Aranda can take those at bats. Can he really take that step forward? He's going to be going into his age 27 season this year. He ended up having pretty good numbers, over 143 plate appearances in the big leagues last year.
His second half, when he came back from the injuries, he was one of the best bats in the Rays lineup. He was absolutely red hot.
So a Yandy Diaz trade would not shock me. If I'm putting it somewhere like percentage wise, I think it'll happen. I don't know, maybe 50-50, but maybe 45-55 that he stays, like 45 or 45 that he's traded, 55 that he stays. Wouldn't shock me. He's a very good hitter. Other teams will see that. I think maybe the teams that he'd be a fit for, the Rays might not want to do business. I think he would be a perfect fit for the New York Yankees.
Yeah,
To be their leadoff
I bet the
hitter.
Yankees would love him.
To go Diaz.
Would the Yankees love to trade Jason Dominguez for him? Probably not.
No, but the Yankees have had interest in him. I think they were interested in him during as we got closer to the trade deadline.
Yeah.
But that's a team
Seattle's another team that has come up
sure.
with that. Boston is one that has come up, but I don't know how much real interest is there because they're just like Tristan Casas is like kind of locked in at first, and they don't really have. They have a lot of just players that aren't that good on defense in places. So like, I'm not sure exactly, but that's again interdivision doesn't make any sense. I agree. I think that the tricky thing looking at the Rays roster is you have some of the most they need to add offense, right? So how do you add offense when you trade Yandy Diaz? That's a guy that you would want to add in offense, but it is positional, right? Like, can you trade him for something and replace that position? Because Jonathan Aranda is somebody that should have at bats, and he plays second base, first base, DH. Yandy Diaz plays first base, DH. Brandon Lau plays second base, first base, DH. Christopher Morel is a part of this team, and I think there's good reason to believe that he has a bounce back capability. He plays, he stands at second base and left field and third base. Doesn't play any of them well at all. So like second base is his most natural position, I guess. It's the one he's played the best, really the best of his positions, but still really bad defensively. So like second base is pretty crowded already.
Yeah.
You also have like Jose Caballero and whatnot who can also play that. So it's getting a little crowded. So like you can move Brandon Lau. You could have Christopher Morel at second base or DH. You can have Brandon Lau at first base or DH. You can have Jonathan Aranda, but how do you get everybody in there? And then how do you do that with Yandy? And that is a question mark, right? So I think they have to weigh it. I agree though with you that I don't think it's much closer to 50-50 rather than a like fait accompli that he's going to just be traded. Like, I don't think I would go into this offseason saying like he's definitely traded for sure. He is somebody that I think the Rays will only trade if they get the deal that they want. Mm-hmm. And if they wanted to trade him for sure, they would have done it at the deadline. That's a much easier, cleaner thing. And I think at the deadline, they did a lot of like, we've mentioned this. They did a lot of off-season shopping. That was a winter. I think I even mentioned this was a winter meeting style deadline where they made a lot of moves that normally they would make at the winter meetings that feel like kind of crazy that all like kind of work together once you see the whole picture. I think if Yandy Diaz was really somebody they were like, we do not really necessarily want to keep him around. We just don't see the fit on the roster. I think that's maybe where you make that move. I think they go into the offseason. There is a chance that other teams might say, like, you know what? We're gonna meet your demand. We didn't want to do this at the deadline. We didn't think we were gonna get to that thing. We missed out on the wild card. We're not gonna make that mistake again. Here, we're gonna say yes. Otherwise, I do think they just have to kind of make some tough decisions, right? I mean, like we already talked, like Curtis Mead is not on this roster, and you have to kind of make a decision with that. Like you could have a first base of Curtis Mead and Jonathan Aranda platoon that could definitely replicate Yandy, and then Yandy is traded for whatever that piece, like that outfield piece or that starting pitcher piece or catcher or something like that. But I don't think it's a move that they are hamstrung to make. Like this is a move that they will only make if they reach that limit, and otherwise they'll just be fine with like we saw this offseason. You know, if Jonathan Aranda starts the season in the minor leagues, again, I don't think that's what they want. But like, I think they are looking at how can we fit this roster? Who doesn't fit? And Yandy Diaz, if they don't get the offer, they're going to be more than happy to just keep him.
Yeah, and he's played at, and I don't know, I'm not projecting him to ever win a batting title again. But we've had the best years of Yandy Diaz, and he has played at a star level. From 2019 to now. You look at first baseman, even though for first couple of years he was here, he played mainly third, split it a little bit. Has a 133 WRC plus from 2019 through 2024. That's better than Pete Alonso. It's better than Paul Goldschmidt. Better than Max Muncy. It's better than Nate Lowe. Better than Rhys Hoskins. He's only behind first baseman. The only first baseman he's behind in that time frame are future Hall of Famer Freddie Freeman and World Series MVP Freddie Freeman, Vlad Jr. and Matt Olson.
Mm.
The only first baseman that have been better hitters since Yandy Diaz over the last 5 seasons. So he has played at a star level. I don't know if he's going to continue to play at a star level. I think he's going to be an above average hitter. But if you trade him now, you got 5 incredible years from Yandy Diaz. And so again, we'll see. I'm not going to judge a trade before we see the return, right? Maybe, like you said, there is that outfield spot that evens out the roster a little bit. Now, Aranda, I think he's on the heavy side of that platoon. I don't know. Curtis Mead, we've talked a little bit about why we're not as confident in him moving forward, but if his role is just you're going to hit against lefties, you're going to play some first base, okay, we can make that work. I don't think he's good enough to be an everyday player on a team that has the goals of the Rays. So shall we get into where we think the Rays may try to add? Because Eric Neander has said they have to look to add offense, specifically at the catcher position, at the shortstop position, which I thought was interesting. And so, where do you want to start? Catcher, shortstop?
Let's start at we'll go in batting number or in position number. So let's start with catcher. It is the question I think that we get the most. I don't know about you, but that's what I get the most on Twitter or whatnot is how do we fix catcher? like what is going on? It's been outside of 1 year with Mike Zunino, all-star year with Mike Zunino, catcher has been a offensive black hole position. Now, Zunino, his entire time here was a fan and a half season of Travis Darno. Can't forget that. Like he was also very, very good in a half season here. Defensively, the catching position has actually been really rock solid. It's just, it has not been good on offense. And so you have Ben Rortvedt, who I think is fine. I think he's a better defensive catcher than an offensive catcher, but he had he was in the 90s of WRC plus. He had quite a bit of contact rates. He's, I think, somebody that you can be comfortable with as part of a platoon, as part of a timeshare. So adding a right-handed bat that can actually hit, but also is not a black hole defensively, because the Rays are just not going to punt defense at catcher. Like that, just anybody that offers somebody that can hit but can't field at catcher, the Rays are just not going to do that. That is just fundamentally up the middle is all defense for them. Catcher, shortstop, center field. If you're offering people that can't glove it, they're not going to want to do it. And that has been proven quite a bit. I mean, the Yankees lost in an inning due to defense up the middle, a failed play at shortstop, a failed dropped catch. And I think you mentioned this, bad positioning as well as a bad route by Judge, who should have caught that game tying double.
Yeah, and not necessarily bad, but
not optimal.
It's what you get when you say, all right, here's like we're going to do the trade off of we're going to put Aaron Judge in center field so that we can also have Juan Soto and Alex Verdugo in our lineup. And that's how we need to make it work is Aaron Judge is going to play center field. Yes, the offensive numbers of Judge and Soto are going to carry you very far because they are two of the best hitters ever, really. And but when you get in those key situations in the World Series, things like outfield defense do matter. And while Aaron Judge is a passable center fielder, he is not the type of center fielder that I think you want in the World Series. He is nowhere near as good defensively as Jose Siri or Kevin Kiermaier or Brett Phillips, right? Like these are guys that the Rays have had not Jose Siri yet, but Kiermaier and Phillips are who the Rays were running out there in center field, and Manuel Margot. And the way the Rays shape their lineup, they're able to do that. And so I think that's bad roster management from the Yankees.
And there is a choice that Aaron Boone could have made that we'll just put it out there. Is that they had Trent Grisham on that roster. They never used Trent Grisham. Right. They had a big lead. There's no reason to have Alex Verdugo in your lineup when you could move Soto over, you can move Judge over, and you can have Trent Grisham. But keep that name Trent Grisham in mind because it might come back later in this podcast as an option. So I'm just saying, Aaron Boone. I've long said I think he is one of the few managers who actively hurts his team's chances. I think people blame managers for too much. He actively hurts them. I think he deserves every bit of blame. Nice guy, seems like a nice guy. The patience of a saint to actually talk to the John Boy crew every week. That seems like a nightmare. And so he suffered enough from that alone. But I think there was some really big mismanagement in that World Series that Aaron Boone he has to own. And I think having Aaron Judge in there at center field when you have the lead, you already got what you needed from Judge. You don't need to bench Judge. You can bench Verdugo. You can move Verdugo out, and then you can have Trent Grisham in there once you have that lead when defense becomes more important. But Trent Grisham's a name. Just this is a teaser for later. But we're talking back to the catcher. Who of this? There's some interesting names. Let me go down the list right here. Fangraphs has a really good free agency tracker right now, and they also have projected WAR for next year, as well as what their 2024 WAR was, wins above replacement. And so the top catchers that are available up into the point of, let's say, Austin Hedges, who just got re-signed by the Cleveland Guardians, are Carson Kelly, who's last with the Texas Rangers, Travis d'Arnaud, whose option was declined by the Atlanta Braves, Kyle Higashioka, who is with the San Diego Padres, Danny Jansen from both Toronto and Boston, Yasmani Grandal, and Gary Sanchez, the Kraken. Of those names, are there any that stand out to you? All of them are right-handed except for Grandal, who's a switch hitter. Any of those names stand out to you, Brett, as somebody that you would want to see the Rays pursue? None are going to get a multi-year, like a really big deal. I don't think. They all seem, for a number of reasons, older or kind of just not, like, none of them are projected to be over 2 wins above replacement. All are in the 1.5 win range or less. So I think they all are platoon type guys and part-time role playing guys. So I imagine they are all in the range where the Rays could absolutely sign them if they wanted to. This is not like wish casting. These are absolutely names that they could sign.
I'm interested to see what the market for d'Arnaud is. I was pretty shocked that his option was not picked up by Atlanta. Obviously a player that Rays fans are familiar with. He spent a half season here and kind of solidified himself as one of those Rays cult heroes. He had that 3 home run game in New York, and was really a solid player for the Rays down the stretch in that season. I like Higashioka. I'm a little unsure if like his power is all real, or maybe that was 17 home run season was a little bit of mirage. The one guy who I think is definitely going to be affordable, and I'm not trying to penny pinch for Stu here. I'm just thinking, okay, the Rays are, this is a number 2 catcher, presumably behind Ben Rortvedt, right? It would be Danny Jansen. He's a guy that's he's moving into his 30s. He's been a little banged up, but can still swing it. Is a pretty good defensive catcher. Familiarity in the AL East. He's played for Toronto for his whole career and then played in Boston for a little bit last year. And that's a guy who I think I've long admired when the Rays have played against him. It's one of those guys you think, man, we wish we had a guy like that. And so if we're shopping in the bargain bin, I think Danny Jansen is one of those that could be pretty easily attainable.
I like Danny Jansen. I've long liked Danny Jansen. His defense is solid. His bat has been really good. I would have been shocked that he would be in the bargain bin, but then he had a pretty down year last year. He was below 100 RBRC plus for the first time since 2020. He then got worse after the trade to Boston, both defensively and offensively. So I do think there is a bit of a discount there and a bit of a bounce back potential. Danny Jansen is 30, which is really nice because I do really like Higashioka. I think he's my number 1 because I think his defense is really good. I don't know if I agree with you. I don't know if I buy the offense so much, but I think he's more in the 85 when weighted runs created plus. So I think he's the worst bat of those, but I think he is the most steady defensively. However, he's 36. So he's 35. Travis d'Arnaud is 36. Danny Jansen being 30, even though he is also similar to Travis d'Arnaud, pretty oft injured, has shown a bit more consistency. And he's a younger. And 6 years is a long time at catcher. And I mean, Travis d'Arnaud, I think I do need to mention this because I like a lot of some Rays colored glasses here. Like in 2020, after he left the Rays, like he had a monster year with the Braves. He was a 144 WRC plus and almost 400 weighted on base average. Huge monster year in a short season. The next year he had a 79 WRC plus. Then he had 121. Again, these are part-time roles, and then back to 84, and then last year about 100, so about average. He's projected to be about 99. So like I do think like we look back at that, and I think from the Rays he was awesome offensively, and then the next year he was really awesome offensively, and we saw that in the postseason. And I think we kind of calcify that as he's awesome offensively.
Yeah,
it's been a bit of a up and down. Like there's a reason why the Braves went out and traded. They had William Contreras, and they traded for Sean Murphy. They're not super comfortable with Travis d'Arnaud as like a steady starting catcher. So, but as a part of a righty, platoon, split time platoon with Rortvedt, I think any three of these guys would be interesting. If Danny Jansen's market has kind of eroded, he has the most upside, I think, of those three.
I like that. Yeah, no, again, and maybe the market does develop for him. I don't know. Like it just feels like that could be like a 1 year deal with an option for a second at like $7 million or something. I don't know. Like what was he making last year? I should pull that up.
Danny was making $5 million last year.
Do we think that's going up?
I would imagine on the open market it'll go up. Austin Hedges got $4 million. So I would think at least okay. if Austin Hedges is getting $4 million.
I did not know that he signed already. I need to pull up Fangraph's free agent tracker.
Yeah, Austin Hedges signed back with the Guardians. They cannot quit that sweet defense and truly horrendous bat.
So 2 years, $7 million was an undersell for me on Danny Jansen.
Yeah, I don't think Jansen's going to take that, but I will say, you do have like Travis d'Arnaud. The Braves said no to 1 year, $8 million. So somewhere in that, like $7 million a year seems to be about right.
Yeah.
We'll see. Like if you could go multiple years and lower the average, you can go shorter and up the average. I don't know. I'd be curious. I think any three of these, if the Rays brought any three of these, I think that would be really interesting. One other name to just keep in mind is Max Stassi, who's 34, coming back after missing a whole year. Really excellent defensive catcher. The bat is also not terrible, but it's really a matter of like, he's coming back. What does he provide? But that is a really interesting. The last 2 years with the Angels in 2022 and 2021, like this is now going to be 2 full years removed. That he had 13 home runs and 9 home runs. He had a 63 WRC plus his last year in the majors, and it was about a 100 WRC plus the year before that. So offensively, maybe not there. Defensively, really, really good. If you are doing a lefty righty platoon,
right,
Stassi could be a nice upgrade as like upgrading that floor.
I do like Stassi. Yeah, and again, and maybe Jansen is able to, if he's going to make anywhere from that 6 to up to I guess $10 million a year, it'd probably be his market. Would find more of a number one job. And not to say that you signed Danny Jansen and he doesn't become your primary catcher. Ben Rortvedt's great and all, totally. But that would be more of a split situation than a number two. So I like the Max Stassi shout out. I think he's someone that defensively the Rays would be all totally. Over.
And a bit more competitive veteran bat than like say Alex Jackson.
Yeah, makes good swing decisions.
It's not going to be somebody that lights up your offense. You're not going to bat him fourth, but like not a full black hole.
No.
a red door.
No. Any other catchers? I mean, is there anyone in the trade market really? I mean, catchers are hard.
Joey Bart with the Pirates. I mean, I think there's a lot of interesting potential trades with the Pirates because they have several catchers. And they were looking at Yandy Diaz there. So like maybe. But I don't really see. I think the Rays had a chance for Joey Bart, and I think they passed. And I think that's probably a reason.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just kind of looking through above average bats at the catcher position. I mean, would you probably don't want to have a guy like Connor Wong. I think he's pretty bad defensively. Jacob Stallings was in Colorado, but what do you expect from him outside of Colorado? Joey Bart
with Colorado is always tricky.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. Joey Bart would be fun. I don't know. I'm not sold. I'm not sold on Joey Bart, but it's the catcher position. So a lot of the time you're just taking flyers on guys.
Right.
So I think free agency would probably be the way to go.
Yeah.
Because I don't think the Royals definitely aren't getting rid of Freddie Fermin anytime soon. That's the guy I really want. And they see him as the heir apparent, I think, to Salvador Perez. Not as good, but just having a guy back there. Shall we talk about the shortstop position? Because this was in our last episode, this was like what we talked about when we did the autopsy on the Rays season and how we thought Jose Caballero was brought in to be the shortstop, and he was until Taylor Walls came back and Eric Neander, including in that quote to Mark Topkins saying that we want to improve offense at the shortstop position. Okay, great. I mean, how do we go about doing that? I mean,
the free agent market is grim at the shortstop position. So Willy Adames is the top name, obviously, but he already got a qualifying offer at $21 million. The Dodgers will be fine to punt that draft pick for that. There's a lot of teams that will. Willie is an interesting case where that you're going to have to spend up to get him because it is in free agent. He just had one of his biggest years, and more than likely he's not going to be that good offensively at any point in time during the rest of the deal. But you are going to still be okay with even as it regresses back to the mean, because I think Willie brings you a lot of great stuff off the field too. Like in the clubhouse, he's a team leader. He is a great personality, extremely rootable guy. And defensively, I think that's everything you want in a shortstop. So awesome for Willie. Can't wait to see him get his bag. But we're going to move on from that because there's not going to be the Trop is no more for at least next year, or at least a part of next year. So Willy Adames doesn't have to worry about the LED lights blinding him, but I still don't think that's gonna be in that option. Ha-Seong Kim is the name that I'm really interested in. This is a guy that I really wanted coming out of the KBO already, mostly because I adopted the Kiwoom Heroes when we were in the COVID blackout, kind of lockout era, and we were getting to watch KBO baseball. I got to watch him, and so I have already have this extra attachment. But he's been a very solid and kind of all over utility guy for the Padres.
Yeah.
What do you think of Ha-Seong Kim?
I think Ha-Seong Kim is an amazing baseball player. I think Ha-Seong Kim is perfect for the Rays. I do not think the Rays have a chance in hell of landing him in free agency.
It doesn't seem likely. No, he's been a 100 WRC plus bat with 11 home runs, 1 year at 17, and really solid defense kind of everywhere. That should get at least a 4-year deal. And with Carson Williams coming, that's kind of a lot. But
yeah. I mean, I guess
price enforce that though. Price enforce, make sure you throw out a nice competitive offer and make some, at least get him that floor so that teams have to really go well above it. But that's the type of player you price enforce.
Yeah. I think it's really hard to add offense at the shortstop position unless you have a superstar without taking a massive hit defensively. And
Yeah.
that's something I just don't see the Rays doing the same way I don't see them ever doing it with the catcher position or the center field position with the way they have to build their roster. And so, I mean, I look at a guy like Jose Iglesias, who had a really good year offensively this year. He hit like 337, but like has no power. He's just like slapping the ball around. And so had like a 382 BABIP.
382 BABIP.
Definitely not sustainable.
70 points better than his career average.
Yeah. Not to say that, he doesn't have to hit 337. If he comes in and hits 337, I mean, play in the parade, but not for the Mets because they didn't make it past the NLCS. But I just
he's been a slightly below average offensive bat,
but
a very good defensive bat. Yeah, he's been a 90 WRC plus career bat.
He's also like going to be 36 next year. I mean, this would feel very much like the years where like we were going from Yunel Escobar to who's the other Asdrubal Cabrera. It feel like that signing where
now 1 year deal.
Yeah,
1 year deal. There's no
bad 1 year deal.
Yeah, right. There's no bad 1 year deals. So like a 1 year deal and Carson Williams, if it doesn't work, he becomes a bench guy and Carson Williams is up the second half, maybe. But like transitionally, that's not. I wouldn't hate it. I wouldn't hate it. I wouldn't expect 137 WRC plus. That just
no, definitely not.
But if you want to add contact, if you do want to add contact, he does have a good contact bat. He's a guy that you can put eighth. So you add Max Stassi and Jose Iglesias. Suddenly what you've done is like you've raised the floor a bit from like Alex Jackson and Taylor Walls. You've added like a veteran bats that are not as atrociously bad offensively, but they're not necessarily great offensively.
Yeah.
But that could be a lot. Like that could be a huge boost. Is just making them just a little bit better offensively. So I don't hate that either. This is how grim the shortstop market is. The name fourth in terms of projected WAR is Ahmed Rosario.
Oh god.
So, welcome home. Welcome back, Ahmed Rosario. Yeah, I don't. But as we saw, truly horrifically bad defensively, like not good. So I don't know if you look at like. I guess the question for you, Brett, is Jose Iglesias on a 1 year deal versus just playing Caballero and Walls.
Walls and Caballero, you mean? Because it would be Walls. I mean, history shows us that they like Walls.
Yeah, no, yeah. No.
I mean, I take Iglesias on a 1 year deal. I get rid of Walls. You leave Caballero in that utility spot.
Super utility spot.
And then Iglesias is your shortstop. And as he's older, he's going to need more days off. You've got Caballero, and then you see when Carson Williams is ready to come up. I don't know if that's going to be midway through next year, towards the end, or maybe not till 26. But you are in a transition period, so this is not a. You can use a temporary fix. This is not some major move you need to go out and make. And so if you're going to do it, get somebody who I think has a higher floor than some of these other guys. You're not going out and getting Paul DeJong, right? You're not going out and getting Enrique Rodriguez, Kike Rodriguez, or not Rodriguez. What's his name? Kike Hernandez.
Yeah.
Rosario. Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't be the worst move in the world. I wouldn't hate it to bring Ahmed Rosario back.
It's just defensively, like when is he ever going to play? Like, offensively, I don't think he is so much better than Jose Caballero. And so and defensively he's worse. So like, why wouldn't you just play Caballero? I do like, the more I look at it, Jose Iglesias, because like, he's not going to cost much. He's been in the league for 10 years. Nobody is buying the 382 BABIP, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that's the first. He has had only 2 years above 100, 3 years above 100 WRC plus. So I don't think anybody will buy that he is a good bat. But he's also had only 2 years below 80 WRC plus. And that's where I'm looking at. Like, okay, 2 outlier offensive years, but only 2 outlier bad offensive years. Taylor Walls, as a career hitter, is worse than Iglesias as his career worst. So that's an upgrade. Like, is it a huge upgrade offensively? Like, Taylor Walls is a career 71 WRC plus. So that's boosting your career WRC plus from your shortstop position without sacrificing defense. I mean, yes, you might be sacrificing some defense because Taylor Walls, if your internal metrics are saying he is, so good defensively, but like slight downgrade. Like Iglesias is a very, very good defensive shortstop, even at his age.
Mm-hmm.
To jump 20 percentage points, that's huge. That's huge, right? Like, so that has a big impact. That is a huge, huge impact on the team, because again, what you're looking for is you can't have this many black holes, right? Like Ben Rortvedt, if he's like a 90 WRC plus catcher, and if you can add a right-handed version at 90, and you can add a 90 or 85 like percentile guy at shortstop, and then you have, if you do keep Jose Siri, which I think next we can talk about center field, suddenly you now actually have, like, you've raised that floor, and that's something we talked about, right? Was like the Rays lineup works because they're not a stars and scrubs lineup, because their stars are not good enough to be the Yankees, which had a stars and scrubs lineup. They had Soto, they had Judge, and they have Stanton, and then you had a bunch of just flotsam and jetsam out there. The Rays can't do that because Judge is so much better and Soto is so much better than all the rest, that I think if you have really good bats and then some solid bats and then some just like good baseline vets, that lineup can produce a lot of runs. And that's when the Rays produced top 5 in runs the last few years, is when you just had some guys that were not terrible. Like the not suck lineup is what you really want.
Yeah. Shortstop maybe is easier to fill that gap via trade.
And that's the other thing.
And it doesn't have to be like, it could be someone who played second base last year. Like, I mean, Jose Carrero was playing a lot of second base, and then you could play him at shortstop. So I don't know. There's other names out there. That one's tough. I would also not be opposed.
What about that, to stay before you get to your last point with trades? What about you look at the Dodgers? We mentioned we've mocked Willy Adames to the Dodgers a bunch. They had a starting shortstop last in the World Series. Pretty good defensively, made a couple bad errors too, but pretty solid. What about Tommy Edman?
Tommy Edman would be great. I would love Tommy Edman. Again,
now he could be their super utility guy.
Yeah, like he's got a lot of positional versatility. That's not someone I see the Dodgers getting rid of.
But they also do need pitching, as we saw.
I'd be more interested if the Dodgers were to sign Adames, in asking about Miguel Rojas.
Oh yeah,
another veteran guy. He's making like $5 million next year. They picked up his club option, I think, and then, like, again, plug and play, temporary solution, veteran presence. You know what you're getting. I think that would be the move I would love to see. So, but again, I'm also
is Miguel Rojas? I mean, is that not Jose Iglesias with extra steps?
Yeah, well, yes, no, 100%, maybe, and then you're giving up something to get him.
It's what you'd look at as your internals. You just, I think that would be where I trust like the Rays to be like, oh, if you're trading a small piece, because I can't imagine Rojas would go for a lot, right? You trade a small piece, like you could trade. I could see that could be like an Evan Reifert for Miguel, like type of swap.
Here's the thing with Jose Iglesias and guys like this is he is 30, going to be his age 36 season next year. He just played in the biggest market in the country, where he released a reggaeton single, and it was like the anthem for the Mets, who made it deep into the postseason. Does he want to play one of his last years where he could actually get regular playing time in a minor league park somewhere? Like, I don't, that I think on those types of deals, I don't think
this is also true.
I don't know if, it's going to affect the Rays in all types of these deals. I think there's other guys. I don't think we're going to go deep into the pitching today, but when we do, maybe in the next episode, there are some pitchers that I think maybe won't care, about pitching for the Rays in one season. But I don't know if Jose Iglesias or some other free agents will be not as inclined to sign those 1-year deals with the Rays, especially this late in their career.
Great point. I mean, that is a great point. And I think that is a big part of it too, is you have to convince. I think the Rays have been a team that a lot of here's where I think if the Trop was still around, right? If it was like we were going to be playing there, I think Iglesias makes a lot more sense.
Mm-hmm.
And for him, because similar to Rosario, because the Rays have proven that they will do right by veterans, and if they are not competing, they will trade them to a team that they are going to compete or get chances. And like he went to, like, they traded Rosario to the Dodgers, who he was playing with last year, and so like that's a good, didn't work out for them, but like that's a good landing spot, right? So the Rays have proven they will do right by veterans, but it is true, this homeless situation where they do not know where they're going to play, and if they do play somewhere, it's probably a minor league park. That's a good point. Like if you're a veteran and you have an equal deal offer, maybe you go to not the Angels, because they actually have, that's the one position they do have well. But like, do you go to a team that has a little bit more stability, even if they're not as good? Potentially
In the Rays also have
role.
to. Yeah, not and this doesn't matter, I think, as much to pros and free agents. It does to an extent for some players. The Rays now have to then prove themselves to these free agents that they are once again going to be competing for the postseason. Now,
sure.
I don't think that's hard to convince. I do think they're going to have the top 5 pitching staff in all of baseball. So as long as the offense isn't historically bad, that's good enough to get to the postseason almost every year. So, any other players like that? Doesn't have to be catcher or shortstop, but in terms of improving this offense, we think are going to be in that Rays range.
In terms of trades or just free agents?
Free agents. Are we kicking the tire? I mean, do you look at Alex Verdugo's? Do you look at Jesse Winker?
God, no. Please no. Winker maybe.
Jock Peterson?
I've actually always liked Jock Peterson. Here's where you have to really answer this question. And this is important. Are you trading Yandy Diaz or not? If you are, that opens up some doors. If you aren't, what are your corresponding moves, right? So like center field is the clearest upgrade potential, but Jose Siri's defense really makes that a hard bar to clear.
Yeah.
Josh Lowe is in right field for right now. Left field is Christopher Morel.
Yeah.
For right now. I mean, like he is again kind of floating, or DH. But with Yandy Diaz on the roster, he's starting at first base. Brandon Lau is at second base. Jonathan Aranda is at DH. Christopher Morel is in left field. If you're adding Jock Peterson, who I would not be opposed to, right? I think Price is right. I think he's a really solid guy. You now have to you're adding a left-handed bat, but you are now, that's the type of player that you add where you do make a trade with Yandy Diaz, because you are now kind of replacing the playing time, and you are replacing the production in the aggregate. Or you trade Josh Lowe to have in a Christopher Morel type trade where you're adding a piece for now and for later. You're doing a bigger trade. And maybe that's your upgrade at shortstop or your upgrade at catcher. I think a Jock Peterson type or a Jesse Winker type or a Mark Canha type or even a Max Kepler type. I really like Max Kepler as a little cheaper option, but like love the defense. I think there's more in that bat. And if it's not, I think that's still really solid. I think there's some really cool corner outfield names. And I'm saving one that I did not say because I think he's your guy, Brett. So I'll let you mention him after. But like there's a lot of interesting options there. But I think right now it's a roster crunch space, right? It's like Christopher Morel, Josh Lowe. You kind of have to answer what you're going to do there with Jonathan Aranda, Josh Lowe, Christopher Morel, Yandy Diaz. Like musical chairs, somebody's losing their spot if you add these pieces. And I'm not opposed to that because I think you can really raise the floor, like we've talked about with these other free agents, is raising that floor to maybe the ceiling is a little lower, but the floor is much higher, right? Like Christopher Morel, the ceiling's so high. Josh Lowe, the ceiling is so high, but the floor we saw was really, really low. And so do you go with like Jock Peterson, where you're not getting the 90th percentile Josh Lowe season, but you're not getting the 40th percentile Josh Lowe season?
Yeah.
So what I sort of set it up here. There is a name that is out there.
Yeah.
You really like
Tyler O'Neill is my guy. Tyler O'Neill. I think he is if Randy Arozarena was actually a 30 home run hitter. That's what Tyler O'Neill is. And that's not a knock on Randy Arozarena. It's like he was never Randy Arozarena. I praised him like for his consistency. It's like you knew what you were going to get. It was going to be like average to below average, and that's trending in the wrong direction. Outfield defense. Same thing with Tyler O'Neill. He's going to strike out quite a bit. Tyler O'Neill does make some good swing decisions, but he just swings really hard. And because of that, he hits a lot of home runs. He hit 31 last year, was 3 short of this career high of 34, finished with a 131 WRC plus for Boston. And that was only in 473 plate appearances. This is a guy that potentially is going into his age 30 season, has 35, 40 home run power. So again, in terms of the type of deal that he is going to get out there in this free agent market, it might price the Rays out. And I don't know enough about the Rays financials, especially with the TV deal in the stadium situation. But this is a guy that he's kind of who I wanted Randy Arozarena to be. It's like, okay, I'm okay with you striking out a ton and not being a great left fielder, but you need to have some game-changing power. And that's something that Arozarena was always like above average power, but never really great power hitter.
He would have like spurts.
Yeah. And I think O'Neill is that. And
he doesn't have the consistent. So that's the thing, is you'd be trading the like peak for consistency.
Yeah.
Because O'Neill, you mentioned 34 home runs and 31 home runs. Sandwiched between that are 2 sub 100 WRC plus seasons where he hit 14 and 9 home runs. So like like absolutely fell off. Those are useless seasons.
But this year, like he was his most 3 true outcome season.
Yes,
11% walk rate, 33% strikeout rate, and then had a 511 slugging percentage. Like this guy,
he's somebody too, as an ex Cardinals outfielder.
Yeah,
everybody wants one because they're interesting, and the Cardinals they seem to develop and identify some really interesting outfield talent who then goes on to have their best seasons elsewhere.
Right.
Randy and Lane Thomas and I don't know, too many to count. Every fun outfielder out there used to be a Cardinal. Adolis Garcia, I forget. There you go. He's a guy that I could see the Rays also liking because, again, like just start pulling fly balls. Like don't worry about the strike. Like again, they are a team that doesn't care about strikeouts. They don't want you to be a more complete hitter. They want you to do the 3 true outcomes, like walk, mash home runs, and if you strike out, who cares? It's the same thing. Like a dribbler grounder is not going to help us there. We don't know what his market is. It's so strange, right? Because like if I'm looking at this, I'm like saying like, wow, 30, like maybe he showed a sign of a breakout there, getting away from the Cardinals. A lot of players do better. He has that 30 home run pop. He was, 33% K rate. So it's his highest K rate since his rookie year, but it came with an 11% walk rate and 31 home runs and 131 WRC plus. So you're like, ooh, he worsened his strikeout rate, but improved in all of the offensive metrics you're looking for. So you're like, good. He's not like being passive anymore. He's just being like, okay, let me just nuke it. Teams could be like, hell yeah, let's give me a 3-year deal of this. And other teams could be like, absolutely not. I see a mirage. I see a series of 1-year deals. So I'd be interested. That would be an eye opener. If the Rays signed Tyler O'Neill, I would be like, I really am into what the Rays think they can do. Because they would be saying like our internals are showing that he can do that more consistently. I don't know what the Rays hitting philosophy is going forward. The Rays made a lot of trades that changed that. And so I know what the Rays pitching philosophy is. And so I can kind of tell like which free agents, which pitchers they might target. And like when they make a move, I can go like, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Like that guy makes a lot of sense for what they're looking for. I had no idea what the hitting side. And so because of that, I'm looking at a guy like Tyler O'Neill and I'm like, okay, maybe, but are they adding contact? Do they want contact now? And like, so that not Tyler O'Neill, but they need to add power. So yes, Tyler O'Neill. Are you going to have a bunch of different types of batters? What, like, are they trying to control the zone? Like, cause that's like sort of like Jonathan Aranda, but like you also have Christopher Morel, who's a free swinging loose cannon. And you just traded Isaac Paredes, who is a controlled the zone contact guy and only power in like this one weird trick. I don't know. Like, so like Tyler O'Neill makes a lot of sense, but also I don't know if it does make a lot of sense.
It would be, I just think if we're looking to add offense and we'll figure out everything else, it's an easy way to do it. But again, a lot of this hinges on, like you said, Yandy Diaz. I don't know if we'll figure that out until maybe around the winter meetings. Probably see some rumblings before that. I'm sure that you'll see the rumblings either way. That's why I say
yeah, and if they make a signing like a Tyler O'Neill, that's your sign that I think like by Yandy.
Yeah.
Like that's like the thing, like, okay, they're going to make a trade. Now, I have another outfield option because if you're looking at these potential guys, right? Like Jerkson Profar is an interesting guy. Again, like there's a lot of interesting corner outfield options that just like, where is the space? Like Teoscar Hernandez and Anthony Santander are going to be outpriced. They already got a qualifying offer. Not shopping there. Michael Conforto, like there's some interesting options in there. But like, oh, there's Ahmed Rosario again. Hey, Tommy Pham. Look at that. Joey Gallo. We could sign up for that again.
Rays finally get Gallo.
They just several years of bad play later. Now, if the Rays sign Gallo, that's another one that everybody would be like, "Damn it, they're doing it! It's happening! It's happening again." I usually wouldn't even hate that, but again, it's like Tyler O'Neill. You're like, are you adding K's and bombs, or are you trying to add contact? Like, what are you doing? None of these guys would be displacing the one player that I think is the most, I wouldn't say displaceable, but like the one, like the upgrade spot, right? We talked about 3 upgrade spots: catcher, shortstop, center field. Those were the 3 worst offensive production spots. They're the hardest to upgrade, for sure, because teams that have good ones don't get rid of them. So center field, none of these guys can play center field. None of them are good defensively or defensively enough to play center field. You don't have anybody in your roster right now besides Jose Siri that you would trust in center field, right? Like Morel, obviously not. Richie Palacios for a game, but not starting. Josh Lowe for a game, but not starting. Like, again, it gets back to the World Series, right? Like game 5 of the World Series, the Rays would not be sacrificing offense for defense in that spot. And some people might say like, that's why they're not in the World Series last year. But like, I also think that's also why they're not going to have a 5-run blow up like the Yankees had in that game. So I look at that. I look at like game 5 of the World Series, who's starting in center field. And I don't see any of those free agents starting there. No. Now, let's circle back to my little, Chekhov's gun that I put up there on the mantle. Trent Grisham is not a free agent. He is ARB eligible in this year. Last year of ARB eligibility. I don't know what the Yankees' plan is. Like, is he going to just replace Alex Verdugo in left field? I think they're going to wait to see what happens with Soto to like kind of see what that. But that is a smaller trade that could potentially come about because Trent Grisham's value is not going to be very high. He has not hit above 100 WRC plus in 3 straight years. But defensively, he has a lot to like. Offensively, there is stuff to like there as well. He is somebody that could absolutely play center field. He has in very large parks. He is not he has had great center field numbers before. He was a +7 DRS in 2020, +8 DRS in 2021, and +8 DRS, defensive run saves, I should say, in 2022. All 3 of those were in San Diego, which is a monster park, a lot of room to cover. That would be a very fun, again, left-handed bat upgrade. And you could put him right into a platoon with Johnny DeLuca, who can play center field. Like, you don't trust Johnny DeLuca to be your starting center fielder every day, but as a platoon with Trent Grisham, that's an upgrade over Jose Siri. If you do not believe that Jose Siri's bad, like if you think this was the plateau, it's crazy. You have to trade in division.
But they've done that.
Something good.
The Rays and Yankees, I think, have a pretty good working relationship when it comes to trades, and a lot of it is because I think their front offices align a lot in thinking.
And I think they're smart enough to be like, this doesn't really, like, this helps us as much as it helps you. So we're not going to worry about, like,
and they're not trading,
this is
like,
not old school baseball.
They're not trading difference makers. They're trading Ben Wertbeds and Trent Grisham.
Colin Poche for Trent Grisham is like the type of trade, right? Like, ooh, that's, both teams might like this, but like, they also could just be both cut, and no fan will be like, you ruined it. You got rid of. It's like, I think you do look at, like, Yandy Diaz trade. Like, that's, I don't know if we're going to do that, but like, would you trade Garrett Clevenger for Trent Grisham? Like, nobody's going to actually be like, I can't believe you did this. Is Jose Siri the starting center fielder next year?
I don't think so. I think that's one of the moves that we see. I think that's a change. Like, I think the Rays, when they're analyzing all of this, like, they need to make changes. And that's going to be one that's, like, I don't know if they love Jose Siri enough, or if Kevin Cash does, and some of the comments Kevin Cash has made and the dips in playing time, like, if you're going to make a change, that is kind of an easy spot in my opinion, where you've got DeLuca and you can add another, glove first center fielder like a Grisham or someone of that like. You're not going to find the automatic offensive upgrade everyday center fielder. Those aren't out there, not at any price that you could afford, or not on the trade market for what the prospect capital that it would take. But there are options to patch that hole and just to try something else other than Jose Siri. Not to say that it will work. I think Jose Siri might be fine, but I think they're going to have to make some changes, and that's an easier one to do.
I think that's a fun, like, the more I look at it now, this is where I'm at, is the thing with Trent Grisham is, like, for his career, he has kind of neutral splits. He actually has a little bit of a reverse splits, but I think that's just like some weird funkiness in the data. I think he's been a solid bat. I think what you look at, though, is Trent Grisham has been a very good defensive center fielder.
Yeah.
Has he been Jose Siri level? No. I think Jose Siri is maybe game-changing defensive center fielder.
No, I agree.
But you look at, like, Taylor Walls and you're saying he's game-changing shortstop. But how bad of offense can they do that you suddenly are losing your value from the defensive spectrum? Now, if you upgrade shortstop and you upgrade catcher, can you afford Jose Siri as a, kind of wild card? Sure. But what about, is the downgrade from Jose Siri to a platoon split of Trent Grisham getting the majority and, like, Johnny DeLuca, or even, like, splitting them up based on, defensively, like Trent Grisham adds you some offense. Trent Grisham he's projected to be a 99 WRC plus guy. Jose Siri is projected to be a 91 or 86 WRC plus guy. Last year, he had a 78 WRC plus. The year before that, 100. Before that, 75. Trent Grisham, the last few years, 90, 90, or 91, 90, 83, 104, 122. So again, what you'd be doing is you're just, again, sacrificing ceiling for floor. You're saying, we're going to take down a little bit of that defensive ceiling and a little bit of that, like, potential, like, 25 home run bombs for a guy that's a better base runner in Grisham, much better use of his speed on the bases, defensively really good at center field, and offensively a little bit more competitive, or at least consistent offensively. Pair that with DeLuca, who has similar rates, right? A little worse defensively center field, but still pretty good. Really good speed, really good contact, not great bat, but, like, as a righty left platoon, I don't know, like that. I could see something like that, like Miguel Rojas in shortstop, Trent Grisham / Johnny DeLuca platoon at center, and Max Stassi or, like, Danny Jansen and Ben Rortvedt at catcher. And you could see this offense being a top 15.
Yeah, above average.
Take that above average offense, you put that with that pitching.
You don't even have to get to above average. You get to average, and last year you're a postseason team.
You're in the postseason. You get above average, you're flirting with the division.
Yeah. You're going for the pennant.
You're competitive. Yeah.
That was the thing, is you don't need to reinvent the wheel. And I think Eric Nanner knows this, but.
And you also can trade. That's the other thing, is you can trade Taylor Walls. You can trade Jose Siri. You're not going to get much, but you can potentially, that's where the Rays R&D like works. Like they can find in their scouting somebody low in the minors that could be useful. They won't be helpful this year. They won't be helpful next year, but like that could be a guy that could like raise up, where you are not necessarily like getting nothing for those guys, but you are upgrading, and then you're still shifting for the future. So look at that. And that's, and Stu, don't worry about it. We just got you 3 guys that are all making less than $6 million. Dirt cheap. You can trade, Yandy Diaz. Now you're just like a net gain of like 8 million. Trade Colin Poche in there, because that's like 3 million. Okay, look at that. Neutral.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for this week's episode of Raise Your Voice. Next time you hear from us, we're going to go into some of the pitchers out there that the Rays might look at as they try to put together their staff for the 2025 season. Thank you to everybody for listening. We are live on youtube.com/@raiseyourvoice and available wherever you get your podcasts. If you really want to say thank you, you can head on over to patreon.com/raiseyourvoice, where you can become a member for as little as $1 a month. As always, make sure to head on over to draysbay.com to check out all of that great Rays coverage. Once again, thank you guys for listening, and we'll talk to you guys soon.